All right, we're here out on the balcony at Seamore's. Couldn't ask for a better day. Summer. Hot. It's definitely hot, but that's okay. The podcast show must go on. So, Michael, so great to see you. First and foremost, if you haven't eaten here, you have to eat here. Just had an incredible meal, little poke, tuna, and the kale avocado salad with salmon.
Man. You know, the best trick to get people to talk about your restaurant is feed them right before you go on their show.
It worked. And it's not even a shameless plug. It just really is that good. So come here, try it. Highly recommend it. So great to connect. Glad we finally were able to put this together. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So how's everything going? I know the new restaurant just opened, Meatball Shop.
Things are great. I mean, this is the time for restaurants in New York, you know, like right before you hit August, between May and the end of July is really when things are on fire. Specifically for Seamore's in New York, we actually take it straight through the summer, through October. A lot of restaurants in New York tend to like sort of wind down a little bit in August.
Right.
But Seamore's being a fresh, light seafood restaurant, we sort of crush all summer long. But this is the time. This is our time of year. So everybody's really happy, really stoked. We just opened up a Meatball Shop number 8 in
It's the Meatball Empire.
Yeah.
He's a meatball boss.
I'm a ball boss. But yeah, we opened up number 8 in Westport, Connecticut. And yeah, man, just, you know, trudging the concrete jungle.
And how many Seamores?
There's 6 Seamores and now 8 Meatball Shops.
Oh wow! All right, so congratulations on that success. But I know it was definitely not overnight. So how did you get started in this industry?
You know, I've never had a job in any other industry outside of when I was very young. I delivered videos for Couch Potato Video when I was around 12. But very quickly got a job in a restaurant around the same time, and I fell in love with the restaurant business. I fell in love with the people, and also I wanted money in my pocket, and the only place that would hire me was a restaurant, so it's sort of like that's really how it ended up happening. But yeah, ultimately I learned at an early age that hospitality was my thing. Like, I love connecting with humans, and I love making people happy. The easiest way to make people happy is give them some good food and smile and tell them how much you think they're awesome, and you know, that's how you kind of win. And if you can do that well in an authentic, genuine way, you'd be successful in the hospitality business. So
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, that's how it started. And then, you know, the career just started to grow, and I really became passionate about the food element and the beverage element.
So your first restaurant was the Meatball Shop, is that correct?
First restaurant's the Meatball Shop.
So how did you come up with that concept?
I worked in an Italian restaurant for a long time, and the Italian restaurant's still there. It's one of my favorite restaurants in New York. It's called Frank. And there's one dish on that menu that sort of is the staple dish at the restaurant called the rigatoni ragu. And the rigatoni ragu is a simple bowl of pasta, rigatoni pasta with meatballs and sausage, the best tomato sauce on the planet. And every single person that would come to the restaurant would order that dish on top of whatever else they would order. And I used to have that dish for family meal. I would take out the pasta and I would just have meatballs and sausage, tomato sauce, and a side of broccoli. And I did that for years.
So you were on the no carb look before it was even cool.
I was definitely on the no carb vibe for a long time. But when I was thinking about figuring out what restaurant concept I was gonna launch with my business partner, we were butting heads on ideas. And one day I just said to him, I was like, man, you know, everybody loves meatballs. Every fucking person loves meat. Can I curse?
Yeah.
Can I curse?
Yeah, you can curse.
Okay.
It's fine.
I'll try not to. Every single person loves meatballs, and even vegetarians when you make them a delicious veggie ball. And so I said, man, what about meatballs? What about meatballs? We'll do meatballs in a bowl with tomato sauce and a stick of bread late night in the Lower East Side for like $5, and we'll see how it goes.
Can't imagine a bunch of drunk people would want meatballs and a stick of bread at 2 a.m. after drinking all night.
Cheese, meatballs, bread, tomato sauce. And so we just went out there and did it. We started cooking meatball dinners at my apartment in Brooklyn. Every Sunday night, we'd invite all our friends over, cook 20 different kinds of meatballs, a whole bunch of different kinds of sides, and we just have these big feasts, and everybody was was just stoked about it. Like people were just like, they could not wait until Sunday to come over to Chernow's house to have a meatball dinner. And sure enough, we came up with a great menu. I dropped the business plan in front of like 15 regulars at the Italian restaurant that I worked at, and 12 of them wrote us a check.
Really?
Yeah.
And then you guys were on your way.
We found a location on Stanton Street when the Lower East Side, this is going back 10 years, when the Lower East Side was really sort of thriving and there was like a real late night vibe there. Opened up the restaurant.
What happened? So you had, did you just know it was going to be a success? Was it slow? Like, how did when you opened the business, like, how did you open? Was it?
So, it's so interesting. I have a podcast as well. It's called Born or Made, and it hasn't launched yet, but I bring a skill set to the table, I think, that is somewhat innate. I believe I was born with the ability to pay attention to what people like, and figure out a way to make it better.
Right.
And so for years, I really paid attention to what people liked at the restaurant, and especially being a bartender, you sort of like, you have to know how to sort of tweak what people like to make them better. Because if they like it already and you can make it better, they're gonna fucking love it.
Yeah, they're hooked.
And so I have this sort of ability to sort of understand what people like and make it better, specifically when it's relevant. And I just knew I had this vision for the concept. I had the vision for the design, and I had a vision for the location. And Dan, my partner, who I grew up with in the city, he moved out to the West Coast, and he spent about 10, 12 years out there. And I convinced him to come back to open up the restaurant with me. But I knew I wanted it in a 4-block radius. That was it. I was like, I'm not going to break that boundary. I know it needs to be here.
Right.
And he was like, and we looked and looked and looked. We couldn't find anything. Inventory in a 4-block radius is not abundant, as you can imagine. And so he was like, can't we look anywhere else? And I was like, no, man, we cannot. Like, I know this is where it needs to be. And we held out until we found a spot. And I just had this feeling. Man, it worked, it worked. We opened up the doors, literally opening day. We had paper up on the windows, and we said, we're not going to take the paper down until we actually unlock the door and allow guests to come in. And so when the time was right, we sort of looked at each other. He's a super pessimistic guy. I'm a crazy optimist. And he was like, man, we're going to fucking fail miserably.
Nobody's coming.
Nobody's
gonna
showing
come.
up. And I was like, dude, there's going to be a line of people out there. And sure enough, we took the paper off the windows, and there was over 200 people online.
There you go.
And that was it, man. That line didn't stop. It's still going. We've served millions of people at the Meatball Shop. It's wild.
So how many employees did you have at that time?
We opened the restaurant with probably, 12 people.
Okay.
And now between the two companies, there's about 900.
Okay, so there's probably a little bit of a lesson on managing people within there. You know, when you look at kind of the expansion of the company and having to manage people, and being the leader, it's difficult to kind of break from having to be the cool sort of light guy working within a restaurant for somebody else to now you have to steer the ship. You're coming up, you're innovating new ideas, ensuring that the restaurant's remaining relevant, creating new restaurant concepts, all while trying to manage people. What are some of the challenges that you've had managing people, and how did you overcome them? Because I'm sure you didn't just know, and there's not a book this is how you manage people.
It's another one of those. I'm not good at a lot of things, but the things that I am good at, I'd like to say I'm really good at. And one of them happens to be engagement and listening to people.
Yeah.
And so when it came time to go from technician to owner operator, I made a pact with myself that I was not going to be a boss.
Right.
I was going to be a worker amongst workers, and I was going to gain respect for my team that way, because no matter what, I own the restaurant.
Right.
So
you already know that. At the end of the day.
Know that, like, when you meet me, you know that you're meeting the owner.
Yeah.
And so that was apparent, and I treated the staff, and I still treat the staff like family. and they know that I have their best interests. And that sort of innately came to me. Like I was like, hey, like I'm gonna treat these guys and gals like diamonds.
Yeah.
Fuck gold. I'm gonna treat them like diamonds because diamonds are forever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like and my goal, and I set a goal for myself too. Like the goal for me would be to cultivate teams, to have them grow internally within the company, and then ultimately have them go out and open up their own businesses, and then I can be the guy to support them while opening up their own businesses, and that's a way to expand my business, right? And so that was just sort of a goal that I set for myself, and I put in the work. I mean, you know, I didn't take a day off for 18 months. Daniel and I both, we literally worked 18 months straight. We were putting in 90, 100-hour weeks. I mean, it was brutal. It was totally brutal. But we knew that we needed to do that to make it right and to make it perfect, and for the staff to really appreciate what we were doing, because we're not like two rich kids that just like came to the table and said, we want a fucking restaurant.
Right.
This is like our dream and our life, and this is what we've been working towards for, 20 years before we did it. And that resonated with the staff. Like they were able to genuinely appreciate our passion for every single element of the business.
Well, I think what ends up happening as well is, once you achieve or have what you call success, or what people perceive as being successful, like, oh, I'm opening a restaurant, I'm the boss of opening a restaurant, or you become, the CEO or the president or whatever, the boss of people let it go to their heads, and they essentially say, like, now you work for me, which is, to me, that's the death of any sort of organization as a whole, because now people don't understand the vision. It's kind of like, well, fuck you. Like, I don't just work for you. I'm busting my ass. Like, why do I care? And the way that you treat them is not the same. You don't, you're not a man amongst your people. You're more so, you're coming in as just a dictator within it. And so how did you manage, or how do you continue to manage through that? Is it just remaining true to yourself? Because there are a lot of people that once they get that stature, they don't maintain their accessibility, or being, a nice guy, or saying hello every day, or, and ensuring that their employees are bought into the vision.
I think there's a couple of tactics that I've used, and I think I think it comes innately to sort of my character. But I've read many books that also sort of state that this is a great trait to have as a leader. When it comes to work at the restaurants, and just in general, people that work within the companies, I never say you work for me. There's never a time when I introduce somebody that works at one of the restaurants or at corporate or something, and I say, oh, this is John. He works for Meatball Shop. My philosophy internally and also externally communicated to the teams are, you don't work for me. You work for you. We work together.
Yeah.
If we can't work together well, it's just not going to work.
Right.
Right? So, like, you don't work for me. You have fucking bills.
Yeah.
You have a fucking family. You've got all this shit that you got to take care of. You work for you and your family, and if we work well together, we'll succeed.
Right.
And because once I feel, and I can, and it's probably from my personal experiences as well, once I felt like I worked for, like, and I look up when I say that, because, like, that's the feeling that you get when you work for someone. You know what I mean? Once I feel like I'm working for you, I'm already pissed.
Yeah.
The goal is for me as a leader is to have people want to kill for the cause.
Right.
Fucking destroy, rip up cement sidewalks.
So I totally believe in what you're saying. I agree, try and manage the same sort of way. How do you inspire people to do that? Like, what is it that you do that brings them on the journey?
Listen to them. Listen.
Yeah.
Make them a part of the decision making. Yeah. Listen. Like, that's my way of doing it. I think that, and I've worked with a lot of people, and I've worked with a lot of bosses that don't listen. They just wait to talk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's like a big difference, right?
Well, I always say it's like reloading. All you're doing is reloading while they're talking. It's like da-da-da-da. Then you like, the only time you shut up is when you're reloading.
Right.
And then you're going back.
That's it, right?
Like,
it's like there's a difference between listening and waiting to talk. And I feel like when you're a wait to talker, you lose a lot of the shit. Not only are you not hearing what the person is saying, but they know that I'm looking at you straight to the back of your fucking head. I don't even care what you say. Like my eyes are like, you know? And so like that shit is totally... It's like a big tell. Yeah. And you know, sometimes leading through fear is like a short-term strategy. Right. You know, like you can scare the shit out of people enough to like scram and fucking work. Yeah. But like nobody sits scared for long enough. Like they will find a way out of that dark room and like they will chisel their way through the fucking wall. It's human nature. Like you figure it out. Yeah. You know, and the mind is a very powerful thing. And by the way, like I am a nice guy. Yeah. And hey, what's up, Julio? I am a nice guy, so this is awesome.
This is what gets to happen. Yeah, exactly.
But you know,
you can't say this isn't authentic.
No, this is incredible. But you know, I think like the ability to treat people genuinely with kindness. Sometimes you get taken advantage of. There's no doubt about it. Like some people will come in and like there are snakes in the grass that'll totally like prey on that and then try to steamroll it. And that's when, you know, I'm born and raised New York City guy that has seen a lot of shit. Don't fuck with me. That's when like the fucking wings come out, you know, and I'm just like, all right, there you go. Cobra Kai is ready to go. No, not necessary, my man. But you know, like I rarely have to get there because I believe in kindness. I believe in treating people with respect, and everywhere from, you know, like it's so interesting. You know, I'm in the restaurants every day, and tiny little things, right? Like there's a dishwasher downstairs right now who is down there washing dishes, and it's like it's hot. Yeah, it's hot. It's 90 degrees out here. We think it's hot, and we're like, oh, it's hot in front of that steam dishwasher. Right. And so walking by the dish pit, stopping, looking at a dishwasher, putting my hand on his shoulder, making real eye contact with him or her, and saying, "Thank you so fucking much for doing what you do on a daily basis. Without you, we don't exist." Yeah. Like that little thing right there that takes less than 30 seconds out of my day changes the game for that person. Yeah, well, and it's not that I'm so great. No, but you're just genuine about, you genuinely are thankful, and you understand that it takes an army to achieve what is going on here. You said, I mean, you opened Meatball Shop with 12 people, you said. So, I mean, how many people work at this restaurant? 40. Yeah. So, I mean, it takes an army to accomplish when we come in, and it's so easy to say, give me the kale avocado salad with salmon on top, and then boom, like what goes into action after that in order to ensure that it happens. You know, I sort of break it down like this, right? The reason why the restaurant business is so tough is you walk into like a retail shop, and not saying that retail's not tough right now, because retail's struggling, but for different reasons. Right. You know, you walk into like, let's just say you walk into a J. Crew and you want to buy a shirt. You walk in, you look around the store, maybe somebody greets you, maybe they don't. But you typically just grab a shirt, you go try it on, you like it, maybe somebody walks up to you and says, "Oh man, that looks good on you." Or they don't. And then you walk over to the cash register, you put it on the cash register, it's like $60 and you pay for it and you go. So you interact with one, maybe two people tops, right? Yeah. For that shirt. For a restaurant, you walk into the restaurant, you're greeted at the door from the host. There's two managers on duty, one in the front and one in the back. There's the busboy that brings your water to your table and clears your table from you. There is the server that takes your order. Then that order goes into the kitchen. There's 4 people in the kitchen cooking. That's 9. There's a bartender or 2 that's making your drink, so that's 11. There's dishwashers downstairs, so that's 12, 13. And there's prep cooks, 14, 15. So there's 15 people for that same $60 transaction. Yeah, wow. Yeah, and people don't appreciate what goes into making your meal and having a clean plate or a glass of water to actually drink out of. But I think it goes back to, you touched on it, the experience. When I look at being in the hospitality industry as well,
it's all about experiences. I think that now people are more focused on talking about the buzzword that is an experience, when in hospitality, an experience has always been, the way that it works, and the human element behind it, which is one of the things that you and I love, is communicating, being involved with people, listening to their stories, their journey, being a part of watching their families grow, and all of the things that come with just human interaction. How do you make sure at your restaurants the experience is something that's memorable, to where you come back and outside of just the food being good, like there's a lot of people that cook good food, to where you want to come back?
Well, I have to bring it back to my core philosophy and value in the team, right? Like, the team is going to make the experience. You can have the best looking restaurant and the most delicious food, but if the people there don't care because they're not treated well from up top, it doesn't work. And that's why people will spend $15 million to build a restaurant, and it'll last a year and it'll close, because really at the core of it, it comes down to the people. It's a people business, right? And so we are in the business of making memories. Like, that is ultimately what we do. And so I'm very passionate about the way the restaurant looks, every single tiny little detail. Like, I'm a detail-oriented guy. The devil is in the details in our business. But by far and away, I think the most successful restaurants are restaurants where the staff is happy. And I think that you could say that for anything.
Well, it's in life. I mean, any industry, anything. Like, if the staff's happy, you're going to have people that want to go the extra mile and care to ensure that everyone else, your customers, are happy.
100%.
Without that, they don't. So, we've heard about the story to come here. We've heard about some positive ways of managing people and your business.
But can I just say one more thing that I didn't get to, and I think it's so important, and I think that it is what's another, like, one element that's really sort of made me successful in business, is this idea that nothing is like, there's nothing. I've done nothing in business that was just fabricated for no reason.
Right.
Like, every single thing has a story. There's a real story, like a real authentic, genuine story. And I think great businesses tell stories. And the really great businesses don't even need to verbally tell you what that story is. Like, you should be able to experience that story. Through the experience that the business offers. And so, there's a story behind Meatball Shop. There's a story at Seamore's, and people really love hearing stories. They just love, like, oh my God, they love hearing stories.
I think it provides a connection, because everyone has, that story where, the person had to overcome something. Everybody loves when somebody was torn down and made it from something. Everybody loves somebody who was scrappy, working in a restaurant, saw people, always ordered, this said meal, ordered it his own way as the employee meal, and then goes and starts his own business. Everybody loves to hear that within a 4-block radius, like, you're patient, because you could have went 2 blocks out and I'm sure found something, and it wouldn't be where it is today. Everybody loves that story, those stories.
And human beings in general, like, storytelling has been...
It's the way we communicate.
It's just like storytelling has been like there's nothing better than sitting around a fire, like a campfire, telling stories with your friends. Like, if I could close my eyes and be somewhere right now, it would be somewhere on a beach, like at 7:00 at night with a campfire and telling stories and having a good time. That, I believe, is sort of just who we are as beings. We want to hear stories, and there's like 1 or 2 people out of a group that are really good at telling stories. And if you're able to tell a story, a good story, and engage the audience, man, like, that is the essence of an entrepreneur.
Well, that's where you start to create a brand around what you're doing, and people buy into the story that you're telling, and they want to retell the story.
And I know authentic is such a buzzword today, right? Like, authenticity is like such a, but it is actually fucking true too, right? Like, you cannot duplicate authenticity. You cannot recreate it. It is from it's like it's from the soul. You know what I mean? Like you can't.
Well, it's who you are. It's your DNA. Who you are as a person. What makes you you. And even the story is either the story. Like if you fabricate some bullshit, at some point you're gonna have a disgruntled employee that just goes, "Hey, it's all bullshit," and it's all.
And so money guys out there, fucking listen up closely. You can't fucking duplicate authenticity ever. Period. You can't. So don't try to.
Full stop! Exclamation mark. So when we go through, your story and kind of learning some lessons from managing people and being a great leader. There must have been challenging times that you faced trying to get a business, more importantly, a restaurant off the ground and keep it going. And what were some of the challenges that you faced or the adversity that you faced? And then, how did you overcome it?
Well, for starters, I didn't graduate. I went to college for a year and a half, hated it, and went to culinary school instead. So I didn't come with like a business degree. Right. I needed to take. I got a real crash course on the fly while operating business, and I wouldn't have it any other way now, knowing what I know and learning what I've learned. But yeah, like when it came down to trying to figure out raising money and how that was going to work, and I was in business with my best friend, which is like a challenge in itself. Those things came up that were really, really difficult to navigate. And only through sort of trial and error and making bad deals, like full blown. I'm first to admit, like I've made some bad deals. I've also made some really great deals. But like those were the challenges and the hurdles. And I'd say the biggest one of all is partnership. For me. Partnership is like one of the most difficult. Business partnership is one of the most difficult things I could, from my experience, it might be different for others, but it's very, very challenging. Specifically, if there is not like a very clear delineation of labor for who is doing what and when, and then sticking to that plan. Yeah. Right? Like once those lines get blurred, and people start
you're just
stepping,
like butting into each other. You're not as efficient as you should be. You're stepping maybe into what your business partner's doing. He's stepping into what you're doing. And
when one partner feels like they're doing more for the business than the other, it's over.
It's done.
And that I feel like that. Whenever I talk to people that have had challenges in partnerships, that's it. It's just like once one person feels like they're doing more, or they're better at what they're doing. The trust and the confidence in your partner, which has to be bulletproof, like fucking bulletproof, is gone.
Because people chip away at it. Even the employees, everyone's trying to turn mom and dad against one another, or go get a different story, or you're so much better. I mean, look at how many bands have broken up, where they've
Best
gone
bands
on.
in the world.
Exactly.
You're like, how the hell did these guys?
Like, what are you thinking? Like, you have everything in front of you. You're such an amazing band. Everybody loves you. And then it's like they're broken up. You're like, what the fuck? One
other thing that I would say though, which is like something that I've learned that is like super that was super helpful for me is somebody said to me once, your ego is not your amigo. Yeah. And I listened to that and I was like, yeah, because I believe that you can't be good at everything. Yeah. And though when you're like blowing up and you're like shit's going through the roof and you're like, oh my God, this is insane. This is incredible. You feel like you're invincible and you feel like you can do everything. Right. And at the end of the day, you need to know when to step the fuck off. Yeah. And let others take the baton. Now, do you self-regulate? Is it your wife? Like, how do you like check yourself? Because we've all gone that way where it starts to go a little too good, and you need either the market corrects you, like punches you in the mouth, some tragic event happens, maybe you have a mentor, a spouse, a significant other, or yourself, and maybe it's a mixture of everything. Well, I think it is pretty much a mixture. For me, anyway, it's been a mixture. I also I believe in doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on your strengths.
Yeah.
And once a business gets to a point where your strengths become far less important / relevant, like for me, I'll use myself as an example. I am the visionary at the brands that I've created. I come up with the idea, I design the businesses, I design the branding, I create the culture and the community, I put the team together to get it going. I build the first, so far it's been the first five to 6 units. And then I know, and I found out at the Meatball Shop, but I know that I am less important in operations than I am in creating the business.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from.
So it was just like once I was able to grasp that and be like, hey dude, it's okay. Like, you are less important.
Yeah, they're better at running
they
place
are,
without you than you
it.
are being
like
there.
You, and by the way, you should love and embrace that because you love creating. So you trying to stick around and be the day-to-day operator for something that
it just makes you miserable.
Makes you miserable. And
and everyone loses. Everyone loses. The business loses. The people around you, because you don't let them develop, so they leave because they're like, well, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And then you don't have the free time to innovate and create the way that you do.
So that's what I've learned. Like once it starts to feel like the meetings become far less interesting to you and far less engaging to you, that's probably a good time to say, what is happening here? Like, what is happening here for me? How can I add value? If I can't add value the way I was adding value, this is the perfect time for me to start thinking about stepping down, trying to offload some equity, letting the pros rock the ship, steer the ship, and being the cheerleader from the sideline and creating again.
Right.
And so, like, through my career, that's what I'll do. I'll build it, make it whole, culture, what we talk like, how we communicate, how we mourn, how we celebrate, what we eat, how we dance, how we do our thing.
Yeah.
And then start to step off and let the pros operate.
Yeah.
Always stay involved.
Yeah. Keep your pulse on it.
Keep my pulse on it. Like, I have been the face of the brands that I've created. So like, and that's impossible to change, right? Like once you are.
Yeah, you are.
You are, like you can't like not stop that. You can't not be anymore.
Yeah, you can't have Faisal at Seamore's and be like, hey, or the Meatball Shop.
And so and like at the end of the day, like you have to get comfortable with letting go, and you have to get comfortable with not having the control that you had, but create it somewhere else.
Yeah. No, I totally. So it looks like you're creating in other ways because fitness is a big part of your life.
Yeah.
I actually was online trolling you a couple months back, and I was like, this guy did a bodybuilding contest? What the hell? Like, how did you get into that?
I'm like, I'm also an extreme person. Anything that I enjoy doing, I don't just do. I go like full steam ahead, full throttle, like 6 gear only.
Yeah.
I'd run the marathon last year. It was one of the coolest experiences ever. Fed 725,000 people.
You're running again this year.
Running again this year. But like a week after I finished the marathon, a friend of mine in the fitness world said, "Hey, what's next? What's the next goal?" And I was like embarrassed. I didn't have like a next fucking fitness goal. And she was like, "Oh, you should bodybuild. Like you've got the body for it. You should just bodybuild." And I was like, "Bodybuild?" It's like I've never. And
for those of you that don't, he is fucking shredded. I like women. I can game recognize game. I can call it out and say he's fucking shredded.
Appreciate it. Hard work, motherfuckers.
We'll get to the tips later on,
But she was like, you should do it. And so like I went home that night and I was like, Donna, you're not gonna want to hear this. And she was like, what? And I was like, I'm about
pumping iron. Here I come.
I was like, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just dove into it, and it's hard for me to turn down a challenge, and so for the next 6 months, I got a coach. I totally changed the way I ate. Not that I wasn't eating healthy, but I needed to add things to my diet because I was not eating a lot of carbohydrates. I was eating a lot of fat because I was doing more of a ketogenic sort of style eating. And so I had to flip-flop the whole thing. Everything was weighed out. There was not a gram of anything that went into my body that I didn't calculate for and weigh and cook and do it all. And so it was like 6 months of hell for my wife. Secretly, like, I fucking loved it. Because I'm like, I like to think of myself as not a control freak, but like, I am a closet control freak, and I was able to control everything. Like how long I worked out, down to the gram. So I did that, and that was pretty cool. I came in top 10. I was pretty stoked.
Oh, congrats.
And now I go right into my marathon training again. So,
So you've always had a very, very stringent fitness regimen. Like every morning you run to the gym. I mean, is that something that keeps you balanced when coming into the craziness that, you come into a business, and especially in the restaurant business, something's going to go wrong. You don't know what it is. You're going to get thrown curveballs left, right, and center. Is fitness kind of something that is your outlet and grounds you, or why has it always been such an important pillar of your life?
I was introduced to fitness when I was going through like a really rough patch in my life. When I was in my early 20s, I was like, I'd been working in restaurants since I was 13. I was definitely a party guy. But I grew up in Manhattan, so I was exposed to a lot of shit at an early age, good and bad. But I was able to work my way into situations. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 15. I was just a crazy kid, and I went through a lot of shit. And when I was 23, I came to my senses, and I said, man, like, I'm so much better than this. I got to get my shit together. And so I did, and I met a couple of guys that dragged me into a boxing gym, and I just became hooked. I was hooked on Muay Thai kickboxing. Hooked to the point where, and what I realized was fitness is, if anybody is struggling, like, and I've said, I've now been sober a long time. I got sober. Right. That's what happened at 23. But, anybody struggling with mental health, or really struggling with anything that isn't like physical necessarily. That's like, that's mental, or that puts you in a that I think that there's something that happens when you use your body physically and exert energy in an extreme-ish kind of way, right, that changes your mental state. And for me, fitness does just that. So, I wake up super duper early in the morning, and I train. I wake up at 5 a.m. and I go to the gym, and it gives me an opportunity to like take my time, and nobody's in there, and I put on my favorite tunes. I just get into it, and I challenge myself, and I've been doing that for 15 years, consistently. And I recommend fitness to anyone. Well, like anyone who's struggling with anything, marriage, fucking business, your own mental shit, your insecurities, your instabilities, your whatever it is. Like, if you were able to just dive into fitness, moving your body in an extreme way, the outcome of that is just incredible. It's just incredible. And you got to think about, like, back in the day, all this computer and fucking phone and technology shit, which is awesome, which I love, but like 100 years ago didn't exist, and people were happier. Yeah. And the reason why they were happier is because a lot of the work was done manually. There was a lot of manual labor. Like, you were focused on like moving shit around.
Physical exertion.
Physical exertion. You were moving shit. You were doing things with your body. And when you do things with your body, it affects your mental state. I believe in it. I believe in it more than I believe in most things.
So, I mean, a big part of that is obviously what you eat. They say you are what you eat. So now that it's summertime and we all aspire to have a six-pack like you, what should we eat, or what are some healthy tips when on the move, or you travel a lot, you move around. What are some tips, kind of?
It's tough, right? Because I am into it,
right.
So I could sit here and talk to you about like macronutrients, and people are gonna be like, yeah, whatever. But I think at the end of the day, like, I live by the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, I eat a clean diet, and 20% of the time, I fucking barbecue burgers and have steaks and eat ice cream.
Right.
And that gives me the opportunity. I have zero FOMO. You know what I'm saying? I just don't, because I get it. But I've been able to train myself that Monday through Friday, I eat 1 egg and 4 egg whites and a cup and a half of kale every single morning. That's my breakfast. I've been doing it for years.
Note that.
1 whole egg, 4 egg whites, and a cup and a half of kale. I have coffee with a little almond milk and some protein. And then for lunch, I have a kale and avocado salad at Seamore's most of the time.
Which is amazing.
And then for dinner, I have protein, some sweet potatoes, and veggies. And like that's what I eat. And and it's pretty simple, like I have eggs in the morning, I have a salad, a nice, healthy, substantial, big salad for lunch, and I have protein, veggies, and some complex carbs for dinner. And on the weekends I go ham. And like I work out like a beast. And I enjoy that shit. And like I think there's like a 90-day threshold for most things, right? Like people are like, I love running. Running is like one of my things. We were like, I fucking hate running. And I'm like, when was the last time you actually gave running a shot? Like, you hate running because you went out and took a run once and you thought it sucked. It was hard. Like, if you can't learn to love the hard and the hurt in life is gonna suck. Like, you've got to learn to embrace the hard and the hurt. And like, by the way, once you get through like 90 days of like giving it a go for running, it's the best, man.
It ends up becoming a part. It's a routine now that you actually look forward to.
It's because I feel good inside and out, man. There's no better feeling than coming off a run or coming off an hour and a half weight training session.
They always say you never regret going to the gym. Like you regret having 5 tequilas, doing whatever, or having that cheeseburger and fries. You never regret like going to the gym and doing what you
are always going to feel better on the way out than on the way in. That is for sure guaranteed. That is guaranteed for sure.
Completely agree. With being in the travel business, I'm always curious as to where people want to travel, where they've been traveling. What's something that's on your bucket list? You've traveled around the world, but there's got to be a couple places where you're like, I need to get there at some point.
Yeah, there are definitely a couple. So I have not been to Indonesia. I'm dying to go to Bali. I want to go check out Bali really bad.
I have a bunch of inside tips when you do.
I'll take you up on those. I really want to check out Alaska. Alaska is a place that I think is like, I've only seen in the movies. I've been all over Europe, and I absolutely love Europe. I have not been to Brazil, and I would love to see Brazil. There's so many places that I have not been to yet. But I would say really like I really want to see Bali bad, because I have lots of friends that have been there, and they just say it's a magical place.
It's nothing but great things. So Michael, appreciate your time. This has been incredibly inspiring.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the lunch, as always great conversation, just going back and forth with one another. And all the best. Have a great summer, and cheers to more podcasts outside here at Seamore's on Broome.
Let's do this shit. Awesome, brother.
See you, brother.
Thanks, man.
No, thank you.